for a look at the day's top business news with Brian Quinn. And we're starting with a huge new order for Airbus as Australia's Qantas announces direct flights from Sydney to London, also to New York.
Indeed, long flights. Qantas says those non-stop flights will begin in late 2025, part of the airline's long-running Project Sunrise plan to operate the world's longest direct routes. The company is indeed gearing up in a big way with a massive new order from Toulouse-based jetmaker Airbus. That includes 12 of the company's wide-body, long-haul A350-1000 planes, along with 20 of its single-aisle A220s and 20 of its extended-range A321 XLRs. Qantas CEO Alan Joyce called it a historic day for Australian aviation.
This is a big day for Qantas. It's a big day for Australian aviation. I think it's a big day for world aviation. Today, Qantas is making the biggest aircraft order in its history.
And for more on the story, we can cross to France 24 correspondent Rochelle Harrison-Pless, who joins us live from Sydney. Rochelle, what more can you tell us about the specifics of this deal with Airbus?
Well, Qantas has placed an order for 146 Airbus aircraft and in doing so, as we heard from CEO Alan Joyce there, has signed its biggest deal yet. The carrier is boosting its domestic fleet with A321 XLRs and A220-300s for flights within Australia, but it's also purchased 12 Airbus ultra-long-haul A350-1000 planes. They will operate the world's longest non-stop commercial routes between Sydney and London and Sydney and New York, taking off at the end of 2025. Now, passengers will pay a premium for that non-stop convenience, but Qantas is banking on customers forking out more. The flights are expected to take around 20 hours, whereas currently a flight from Sydney to London with a stopover in the Middle East or Asia takes at least 24 to 25 hours.
Michelle, the biggest of those jets you were telling us about, the A350-1000, apparently being specially configured for this extra long-haul flight?
Well, if a 20-hour flight sounds like utter torture, I don't blame you, but Qantas says that these aircraft are specially designed for maximum comfort in all classes for long-haul flying. Overall capacity will be reduced, only 238 passengers, and more space dedicated to premium seating. Now, cabins will be fitted with so-called wellness zones, so people can move around the cabin and do their yoga stretches, whereas those in first class will get individual suites with actual beds. Now, despite Qantas's claim that these new aircraft are up to 25% more fuel efficient than previous aircraft, experts say that for a plane of that size to stay in the air without refueling for 20 hours means it will need to carry an enormous amount of fuel compared to flights that can refuel on a stopover and carry and burn less fuel to begin with.
Indeed, so its range actually affects its output there. Well, the announcement marks a big bet by Qantas on the return of travel demand in the wake of the COVID pandemic, doesn't it?
That's right. Well, this deal was supposed to happen in 2020, but we all knew what happened then. Since then, Qantas, like other airlines, has been hemorrhaging money as the aviation industry came to a virtual standstill. On top of that, Australia's international borders were shut for nearly 2 years. But Qantas's CEO, Alan Joyce, says it's finally seeing a sustained recovery in travel demand. And because of that, Qantas's battered finances will start to show signs of improvement by the second half of the year. Qantas also saying that the soaring cost of fuel, while it is an issue, that it could be recovered through higher fares and that it is banking on customers' just appetite to get travelling again. And with complex travel rules still in place in some countries, Qantas believes that there is now also a higher demand for those non-stop flights.
Indeed. Rochelle Harrison-Pless joining us live from Sydney. Thanks so much for that. And time now for a check on the markets. Qantas shares rose more than 2.5% in Sydney on Monday A mixed picture on Asian indexes, though, as the latest data out of China shows factory activity there shrinking during the month of April. Sydney's ASX overall down around 1.25%. Chinese stock exchanges closed Monday for a public holiday. The Nikkei in Tokyo, though, just barely breaking into positive territory after earlier losses. The Kospi in Seoul still down around 0.4%. Wall Street had its worst day since 2020 on Friday. Persistent inflation and stagnant growth in Western economies weighing heavy on sentiment as markets look ahead to the next meeting of the U.S. Federal Reserve's Open Market Committee this week. Earlier, France 24 spoke with markets analyst Stephen Innes about the dark mood on stock markets lately.
Sentiment is very, very bad in equity markets right now. As a matter of fact, I've never seen it so bad. And this is a bit worrisome. And we always look at different indicators in the market. We look at what they call the VIX, which is the fear index here. It's not really trading that high. But investors certainly aren't going in and buying this dip right now. I think that is because they're trying to find a price that they feel very comfortable to reduce risk ahead of this week's FOMC meeting, which is going to be the week's biggest focus.
So somber mood on markets. We'll see what happens in Europe and on Wall Street today, Axie.
Brian Quinn with the latest business news. Thank you very much.